Hey you, welcome back to the channel. And guys, we got the final episode of Game of Thrones season 7, our finale. And this episode was, I thought it pretty much strongly finished the season. Um One problem that we've had throughout the Game of Thrones season is a lot of leaks, a lot of script leaks, a lot of episode leaks. Nothing new. We get that every year, but this has been, I think, probably the worst of the years for me, and I think it diminished a lot from this season. And so, as tempted as I've been to look at leaks and read information, sometimes whether it be intentional or unintentional, I've decided that I don't like any kind of leaks in the future. I think it diminishes from the show, so I'm going to try my very best to avoid that. And that's become hard because they're already putting out episode or rather season 8 leaks, and so very hard. But if you're the person who leaks this type of information, please stop. Let us enjoy and be surprised, because I'm finding out these leaks are really good. And some of the leaks that were out, I mean, they were like verbatim by the scripts and things. But despite that, did enjoy the episode. It was an hour and 20 minutes long, about 2 episodes. So I guess we can almost see it was really 8 episodes. But I liked how everything kind of came together, how it finished off stories. But at certain points, I just felt like Game of Thrones has become this situation where they're trying to like hurry up and finish the story, and they're kind of packed. They're kind of almost like just cramming stuff together. It might just be a little bit too much story to try to tell in these last final episodes. I think they wasted a lot of time in the earlier episodes. But anyway, guys, all in all, I still thought it was a pretty good. When you're thinking about a show like Game of Thrones is such a good show, and such an epic show, that even when they don't have their A game, they're still a lot better than every TV show in existence. So, Game of Thrones is always going to be at a level that 99% of television shows can't reach. So it's really hard to see negatives in Game of Thrones. But when compared to a lot of the other seasons, a lot of the other finishes, there were some disappointing things for me about the episode. But all in all, it's still a good episode. Few things I didn't like about how things went. It just everything felt like one giant flashback to me, in a sense where I wasn't able to really get into the scenes. Everything, it's just so much going on. Everything's moving along so fast. It's just action, 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 action. So they really picked up, and so we got this. Initially the big meetup with everyone. We got Jon Snow, Cersei Lannister, Tyrion, all our major characters together in one scene. And of course, they were basically proving to Cersei that White Walkers exist. They had the White Walker in the trunk, and we got this scene with Sandor Clegane Bowl. We got the mountain, and we kind of had their little face off. Nothing big happened, but Sandor just let his brother know, hey, I'm coming for you, and you're even uglier than I am now. So got a little, something there with Sandor. But Cersei still being her normal, self. We got this crazy insult scene from Euron and Tyrion. Um, and I just, I liked how the scene looked, how they set of the dragon pit looked. The dragon pit, it had been as I understand it, where all the dragons were kept, and this was very critical to what happened with the dragons over time, how they became small, even the size of dogs, due to being contained, in these smaller spaces, not being able to roam the countryside free, like we got to see with Daenerys and Drogon, in contrast to Viserion and Rhaegal, when they were back in Marine, how smaller Rhaegal and Viserion were to Drogon because of that. So I thought that was interesting with what happened, basically with that story with the dragon pit and things like that. So the meeting, of course, didn't go well at first, but we got Tyrion, Cersei, and they had this very intense family, uh, uh, scene where they got to kind of lay everything on the table about the entire situation that had deteriorated their family, destroyed their family, on all sides, and things like that. And so I thought that was a great scene. Um, and it seems that Cersei was turned convinced that it was a good idea to send the Lannister forces and call the Banners to help aid in what obviously was the most important thing to focus on, death coming to their doors. And Cersei chooses to go mad. She chooses to go mad queen. Chooses to go mad queen, and she's not going to help them. And of course Jaime's disgusted by that. And it's just so some of some, like I said, Game of Thrones is an excellent show, but some of the writing in this episode, how things just moved along, didn't I didn't feel Cersei's argument for not assisting. I mean, I kind of get the strategy. Let the White Walkers and the Targaryens and the North fight, and when they're weakened enough, now we got a weaker enemy we can defeat. But Cersei not even going in and fully assessing the threat before she decides to do all this. It's just sheer madness. And I don't know if that's kind of denoting that Cersei has gone mad, after the death of her children, which is quite plausible. I can go for that Cersei's pretty much been mad ever since their death and doesn't care anymore. But it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me to have a death wish, like how they're setting it up in the show. Cersei's still just interested in ruling over Westeros, but everybody's making it clear that, hey, we have death at our doors. If this wasn't as important as it is, why would we all be here? Why would Dany come there with the dragons and do all these things instead of just sacking King's Landing? So I'm just gonna have to believe that Cersei has went full mad in these illogical decisions that she's making, like let the she doesn't know if the White Walkers will prevail, as Jaime was letting basically telling her, you don't know if the White Walkers are going to prevail, then you got to face them, then we're all dead, and she's talking about family and her baby, but obviously she can't be worried about the legacy of her family if that occurs, and she's not even assessing the situation, trying to observe it, trying to, at the very least, have her forces go there, fight them off, maybe try to pull back and try to sabotage them at the end of the battle, sort of like what you got during the Battle of Blackwater with Tyrion defending against Stannis Baratheon, and then later Joffrey calling in Sir Meryn to attempt to kill Tyrion. Which I think would have made a lot of more sense, but again, just pure madness on Cersei's part. But anyway, we kind of get back to Winterfell, and Peter Baelish is still doing his maneuvering that he does. That he always trying to set one side against another, trying to play everybody like pieces on the chessboard. And of course, we got to see they were on to Peter Baelish this time, because we get Brandon Stark. He's the three-eyed raven. He's already seen everything, so he can let everybody know what's going on. So everybody knows the story. So they get one over on Baelish. Now, a lot of people have liked, seeing the character of Peter Baelish throughout the season. A lot of people he's been very, important to the show and the overall development. And a lot of people don't like how Peter Baelish died, to be such an important part of Game of Thrones, and a lot of what made Game of Thrones the show we know. And I think that might be some of what I'm missing from the characters, and a lot of maneuvering, because in these final parts, it's just a lot of action, and they're just trying to finish it off. That's what it feels like to me. I'm not feeling a lot of the strong acting, strong delivery, and characters in their final scenes going out. Everything's just moving along, kind of like a Michael Bay movie to me. And that's what I think is kind of bothering me about the end here of Game of Thrones, and how it's going to plan out. I think I still have always thought that the strength of Game of Thrones has relied on the acting and character development, and everything that's been going on with the battle scenes and the dragons and the White Walkers, for me, has always been something that's been in the background, taking a back seat to this phenomenal acting and this feel of real people that seem to just be trapped in this fantasy world. So I think that's what I've always appreciated more about Game of Thrones. But I think in these final episodes, because there's so much story to tell, I think in these final episodes that we're going to get a lot of what we're seeing here is just like pure action. Like they just saved the last 7-8 episodes just to probably do, pure action. I don't know what they're going to do with, season 8, but I would imagine there's going to be so much going on throughout season 8 that we're going to get, basically more of what we're getting here at the end of this, because there's going to be so much story left to tell. But also going back to Bran, Bran's been one of my favorite characters, this season, what they've done with the Bran character. And Bran's, ability to see everything going on, be able to tell the story, affect the story, and things like that. But we great scene. We got to see Sam and Bran meet up, and they're discovering and figuring out all of these things. But it also just kind of showed in the scenes how good of a listener Sam Tarly is, because I thought that when Gilly was telling the story about the annulment, Rhaegar Targaryen, and his, union with Lyanna Stark, and his annulment to Elia Martell, I thought that Sam, the way that it was set up in the scene, I thought that Sam had missed all of that information, and that there was going to have to be these big scenes where he tries to somehow come up with it or find it or something like that. And again, I think this is going back to what I said earlier about so much story left to tell, and they're just kind of cramming everything in and just moving along real quick, and people are discovering and remembering things and getting places at the right opportune time, because I just feel like they got to move the story along, and that's what they're doing. But what kind of bothers me about that's what I was saying in my earlier reviews. Why waste a lot of this time in the first first few episodes of season 8? That kind of, there was a lot of stuff going on that I just didn't think had to happen. I thought there was a lot of wasted scenes that could have, gave us more of the emotions and character build up into many of these discoveries. I think they, could have had a lot of time in those early episodes to deal with that and show us that. I think some of the setups, early episodes, dealt with some things I didn't think that was that important to show. I'll give you an example. If you think about a lot of these scenes where they show Sam, where he'd be making soup for the Meisters and making these pies and doing a lot of these weird things, a lot of these weird longer than needed to be scenes, and they were doing various things. I thought they could have cut that out, because what it seems kind of happened toward the end was that they just kind of quickly ran past a lot of very interesting scenes that I would have liked to see a lot of more reaction to. And so I didn't get that. But anyway, we get there, and we finally at the end, pretty much get, the I believe it's Rhaegal that died. No, I'm sorry, it was Viserion. It was Viserion who died, and we get to see the Night King. He's flying on him, and he's using a bluish, fiery flame, and he brings the wall down, and the White Walkers are able to come through now. So Tormund's, got his hands full, because Tormund is the first people, they're going to hit, and they're marching on north. And, of course, we got Dany, Jon headed back to, they're going to arrive in White Harbor. They're headed to Winterfell. And, which is not good, because now that I think about it, because Dany chose to sail on her ship with Jon by the White Harbor to create this united front for the North. Not only, I think, endangering themselves, but she doesn't have the dragon. They may encounter the White Walkers when they arrive. She didn't choose to fly. So I don't know if she's left the, Drogon back and the dragons back in Dragonstone, which probably was happening. Putting herself in, some danger there, and arriving there without the dragons, and the Night King has his dragon. So, that's going to be interesting to see next season. I thought everything was pretty good. I was kind of, pretty much satisfied with the level it's at now, how much of the story it's covered. Of course, Jon still doesn't know he's Aegon Targaryen, that he's the true heir to the Iron Throne. I would have at least liked to have seen that get touched on, at least him find that out, and maybe leave off with that as well. So we can have more time in the next season to deal with him coming to that, that revelation. Because at this point, I just feel like with only 6 episodes in season 8, I just got this feeling now it's gonna end up like season 7 did, whereas you're dealing with all these White Walkers, and we're not getting a whole lot of story because there's so much stuff going on. And so maybe season 8's gonna spend a lot more time with these episodes, but and with these stories and with these characters. Besides the action sequences, the big battles in there. Because I'm going to be honest, guys, the CGI and action sequences for me, although they look great for television, I can see where all this money's been spent. Looks awesome. Hollywood movie quality. But as good as that is, Game of Thrones for me has never really been about that. I've always been satisfied with really good acting, really good stories, really good characters, and like 2 to 3 minutes of CGI. And it looks like the last part of this is just, mostly going to be battle and CGI. And, I liked how they've done it before with, a little bit less of that. Because to me, the CGI doesn't mean a lot without the story to fit. But all in all, guys, I'm satisfied with the finale. We're gonna have to wait a long time to season 8. you know, I'm not as hyped as I usually am, but I'm definitely gonna tune in, and I want to see the conclusion of this. Been with this for will be 8 seasons, and so very interesting episode tonight. Guys, tell me what you thought about the episode, what you liked, what you didn't like. Thanks for joining me this season 7 with my commentary and partial reviews here on Game of Thrones. Guys, if you like content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, take care.